What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright. So, this video is for the person and persons who basically called me a high-functioning Forrest Gump for believing that the moon landing was indeed real. I took offense to that. I don't mind people disagreeing with me and shit and saying, Mike silly and all this, but I don't know, man. That I never try to attack a person's intellectual capacity, but you did with that one. You called me basically like a sheep that don't have common sense. When I think I've displayed throughout my videos that I've put on here, that I've uploaded on here, that I seem to have at least some semblance of common sense. I had the common sense to not vote for a stuttering criminal in Joe Biden, who progressively slips further and further into dementia every waking second. I had enough sense to not vote for a racist in both candidates, in my opinion, but apparently 150 plus million people did. So, I'm not saying I'm the smartest man in the world. I'm far from that. But to attack me because I do believe that the moon landing was real, I think that's a little bit, that's kind of out there, man. Because first of all, none of us know what the fuck happened. We don't know. We weren't there. Were you? Were you there on the moon? So how do you know it's not true? My point is, from the evidence that I see, I believe that they did land on the moon. But I do think there is something that they're keeping from us. And I'll get to that in a moment. But I see people saying things like, where are the stars? Why aren't there any stars visible? Well, the reason why there were no stars visible, I think I said this in my video, but let me say it again. The reason why there are no stars visible is that the side of the moon that they're on was the side that's constantly illuminated by the sun. They were on the daytime side of the moon. The side of the moon that we tend to see when we looking at the moon at night. That's always illuminated by the light cascading off of it from the sun. So when you have the light on the day side of the moon, even though it is dark compared to the nighttime side of the moon, you don't see stars in the daytime. Now, when do you see stars in the daytime? In the rare occurrence that you have a total solar eclipse, when the sun is blocked out, that's when you'll see stars, or at night. So the sun's sunlight reflecting off of the moon is obscuring the view of stars. Not to mention the fact that we're not exactly looking at high-def pictures. This is 1969. So why doesn't that factor into your thinking process that these are the technology from 1969? But having said that, the technology from 1969 is not as primitive as you think. Because even as early as 1969, there was a such thing as the internet. It's just that it wasn't for mass public consumption yet. That wouldn't start until around 1993, 1994, the mid-90s. That's when it became available for us. And when you think about it, the internet really is just to track American citizens. Our phones are nothing more than just small tracking devices. They track everything that we do now. They've gotten rid of, for the most part, us even having the need for paper currency. Everything is tracked. That's another video. But the American government, the military, has had internet access since at least the late 1960s. So, just think about the telephone. You're saying, well, how is it that I can talk on the phone in 2023 and the caller dropped. But this call that magically happened from the White House to the moon, how did this happen? Well, you do realize that the first successful satellite was put up in the 1950s, right? And that there have been satellites that are out orbiting the Earth. And these satellites help to broadcast signals on television and later on, radio signals and all these types of things. So I'm trying to figure out, why is it so hard to believe that a successful phone call could be made from the White House to the moon? When you have to look at the fact that that was one secure line, that was one feed with one person, the president at the time, Richard M. Nixon, talking to whoever it was, Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin or all of them, Michael Collins, but I think it was just Neil Armstrong, or talking to all three of them, whatever. That's one secure line for one person versus you sharing a tower with potentially tens of thousands of people. And at times, you're moving around all day, right? Aren't you going around doing this errand, going this place, that place around the city? You're not in one spot. The president is in one spot. They're in one spot. That's why there wasn't really any problems with the signal, but it still was sort of scratchy. 1969. Then people talk about, well, why didn't radiation kill them? The Van Allen radiation belt, I think it is, right? Right outside of the Earth's orbit is a layer of radiation. Well, if you're going as fast as a fucking rocket goes, then pretty much it's not going to affect you. It's when you linger around radiation that it's going to affect you. If you're going as fast as a rocket goes, which, man, what is that? How fast does a rocket go? Let me see something. I know airplanes move at 500 miles an hour. Speed of a rocket in space or leaving Earth. Oh, they're going 17,000 miles an hour. Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect them when you're moving that fucking fast. How the picture was taken? The picture was taken from a camera that was mounted on the what do you call it? The ship or whatever the fuck it was they were on. There was a camera that was attached to it. This was all pre-planned by 400,000 NASA workers. Now, you may still call bullshit. Fine. You may say that I'm delusional. But I'm giving you answers to some of these questions that people keep popping up. Logical, easy to understand answers to some of these conspiracy questions. Now, I will say this. I think the reason why, I do believe that the reason why the United States or anyone hasn't been back to the moon is because I do believe that they had an encounter on the dark side of the moon that we can't see. That's something that has been put out there. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but allegedly, they saw something on the other side of the moon. They saw something. Whatever this was, some people say it was possibly alien creatures that were not too happy with us being on the moon. Okay? That's something that's been put out there. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard this. I don't echo it, because I don't know if it's true or not. But I do know we haven't been back. And I heard some rumors that supposedly we're supposed to go back to the moon next year. Will that be a hoax too? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, that's just my take on this. I don't think it was a hoax. I don't think that the moon landing was a hoax. You know, and I think if you really do any real research, it doesn't make really much sense, this hoax thing. The American government have been spending billions and billions and billions of dollars for that moment since the early 1960s, really since the late 1950s, to compete with the Soviet Union. You could call it a very expensive dick measuring contest, but at the end of the day, we were in a technological war, not just a Cold War, with the Soviet Union. And there had been people who had died in this race to put a man on the moon. And, at the end of the day, they were very prepared for what happened. Things didn't go wrong. They could have gone wrong. It was a successful moment. 600 million people watched it simultaneously when it happened. 150 million people on Earth, 150 million people in America watched that moment. And I think you're cheating people when you're saying that it never fucking happened. So, okay, how do we know? Okay, I'm just trying to think of something. How do we know George Washington ever existed? I mean, there's no pictures of him. He could be a made-up person. How do we know he existed? Historical documentation. And, these astronauts, they weren't actors. These were actual astronauts. I never really heard about this space landing, this space moon landing hoax thing until like 15 years ago. And it didn't make any sense to me then. It doesn't make any sense to me now. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. But it is what it is. I mean, believe what you want to believe.